Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is now time for the main event of the 2018 Library Chess Productions Movie Awards, the top 30 best movies of 2018. Now, before we get started, you'll notice, first of all, in years past, we've been very Tim Hortons centric. Yes. We've always had our ice caps, and we've always had our donuts. Well, we're trying to be, water bottles. We're trying to be good boys. So, we're just trying to be a little healthier. But not completely healthy. Because I couldn't possibly let, especially Andrew Warren, a viewer of mine for a long time in the NFL YouTube prognosticators community, I couldn't let Andrew down. So I had to have the donuts. So
we'll eat these donuts for you, Andrew.
Exactly. We're eating these for no other reason, only for Andrew. So Tyler is going to kick us off by giving us his honorable mentions. Then it's going to move over to me. I'm going to give you my honorable mentions. And then we're going to go one for one from 30 to 16.
Okay, here are my many honorable mentions. Including some cheater picks. Beast, The World Is Yours, November, Leave No Trace, I Am Not a Witch, Have a Nice Day, Glossary of Broken Dreams, The Endless, First Reformed, The Hate You Give, Cam, Burning, Blockers, Batman Ninja, and American Animals.
That was nice. That's a good list. My honorable mentions list for 2018 includes Christopher Robin, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, The Girl in the Spider's Web, Disobedience, which is a 2018 cheater, Tag, The First Purge, Tomb Raider, Fantastic Beasts, Crimes of Grindelwald, Permission, which is also a cheater for this year, Sicario 2, Super Troopers, Rampage, and You Were Never Really Here, which is also technically a cheater for this year, because I think it got a limited release in 2017 or something like that.
My number 30 is I Killed Giants, which I reviewed. It was my first review for LCP, and also the most popular video we have. Weirdly.
It is. It is, in fact, the most popular video on the channel.
I don't get it. Don't get it. But it's cool. Considering I reviewed it a month after its DVD release.
Right.
And it's an indie flick. Just basically about a girl who thinks giants are coming. So she training. She's training to do it. I really think it's one of those movies that if you haven't heard of it, you should seek it out because it's surprisingly good. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even expect it to be good. I was just I Killed Giants. It's probably stupid. But I watched it. It was good. Enjoyed it. It was well shot. Pretty good performance from the lead girl. An interesting premise.
That's one I didn't get to see this year, but I like that premise, and that would have been another one of those ones where it's if it was a crummy movie, could have wound up on that premise that deserved a better movie kind of thing. But no, it's an off the board, but it's an interesting pick to get us started.
Showing love to those overlooked films.
There you go. My number 30 best movie of 2018 is A Simple Favor. Starring Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively, story of two women who become friends through their kids' preschool or after-school program, and Blake Lively's character winds up going missing. And despite the misspelling of favor, they spell it the incorrect American way rather than the correct British/Canadian way. Despite that, it's an incredibly fun movie. And it's one of those movies where, Blake Lively as an actress has come so full circle to me, because I really wasn't a fan of hers the first couple times I saw her, to then I saw her in The Shallows, I think it was, and I was like, okay, I'm kind of getting on board with this person. And then to this, which is a role that she very clearly got to have a ton of fun with, and it's okay, the more fun you're having, the more I like you as an actress, right? So she's kind of coming full circle, whereas now I hear her name in a movie and I'm like, okay, I'm a little more interested in seeing this now just to see what she's going to do. And I'm such an Anna Kendrick mark, I absolutely, I'll watch her do anything, including make breakfast. And no, she's tremendous. And this was a more fun Gone Girl. It's Gone Girl, but a little tongue-in-cheek, a little bit. And And that's really what I wound up enjoying about it. Paul Feig, I think, did the movie, and I just thought he did a really good job putting it together. So, A Simple Favor is my number 30.
Is it better than Gone Girl?
I wouldn't call it better than Gone Girl. It's just more fun.
Okay, I was about to stab you.
Yeah, no. It's not. It's not. I don't think it's not a better movie than Gone Girl. It's just like I had more fun with this movie than I had in Gone Girl, and I'm like, that's at least something that I was like, hey, this is Gone Girl if it was, tried to be a little just a more of a fun movie rather than being what Gone Girl was.
I found it entertaining. It lost its way for me a little bit at the end. Like, it was a little too much. I felt the movie was a little try-hard, especially in regards to some of the musical choices. Like, it was trying to add class to it, which, I don't know. The trailer bothered me, too, for that reason. This attempt to make it seem classy. I don't know. It just felt weird to me. It didn't work. But for the most part, it was a fun movie. My number 29 is mid-90s. Yeah, but I've seen like twice the amount of movies.
You're not
what
wrong.
people have to realize here is the movies that are in my list are all 8 out of 10s plus.
Right.
Mid-90s, nice little slice of life film. He really needed to like nail the characters and their interactions, because you always have to in a slice of life film, and he does.
Yeah.
It wasn't a perfect movie by any means, but there was good performances. It was interesting. The chemistry was great. One thing I want to give special attention to is the soundtrack, because it was a nice blend of, I think, mostly rap. Maybe there was some other stuff in there too, but like 90s culture music, which is probably my favorite decade, because grew up a lot like in the 90s.
Yeah.
But
at one point Nirvana's playing.
Nirvana, that doesn't.
Where Did You Sleep Last Night? I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Then it gets hit with like this moody soundtrack music too that like really fits. So it's a nice blend of songs and then music made specifically for the film, and they tie it together really well. I actually really, really loved the soundtrack. I don't often notice soundtracks as much in movies as I do something like video games, but. So when I do really notice it in a movie, like in mid-90s, one of the best soundtracks of the year. So
that would have been an interesting award to give, Soundtrack of the Year.
I considered it. It was on my
short list.
Yeah, it was on my choices.
I'm sure, as you can tell by my reaction, I'll probably be talking about this movie later. There's nothing about that I disagree with. Yeah, the soundtrack, was tremendous. Like, every time a scene would change and the song would change, I'd take a second or two and then be like, yeah, I love this song. Right? So it's just like, it's one of those soundtracks, and I've said this about movies before, it's one of those soundtracks that like, I'd buy this soundtrack. My number 29 best movie of 2018 is Pacific Rim Uprising, and welcome back to America's favorite game show, What Did You Expect? Right? Like, I saw all the criticisms that I was seeing about this movie. A lot of them boiled down to like, well, the characters aren't very good, and I'm like, well, you're judging a kaiju like giant robot movie on the well-roundedness of its characters, and I don't necessarily know that that's maybe the greatest way. I mean, you have to take that into account, of course, but it's like, kind of feels like criticizing the action beats in The King's Speech. Like, it just feels a little weird to me that that's like the primary area that you're kind of basing it on. And no, I didn't like this as much as the first one. I didn't think it was as good. I think there were some improvements in some technical elements, but ultimately, like, I'll take more of those giant monster and fighting robot movies pretty well any day of the week. So Pacific Rim Uprising was my number 29. Obviously a movie I didn't love, but I still enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was okay. Yeah. I think it lost a lot losing like Del Toro's director.
Yeah,
didn't have the same passion. It was still entertaining, but it was okay.
Yeah, and they're not really having much of Idris Elba, and it's tough to replace a guy with that much charisma.
My number 28 is Hold the Dark. I gave the director of this some credit for how he handled all of it. You need movies like this sometimes, because it doesn't really tell you anything. It doesn't really explain anything. It's pretty obtuse. There's hints scattered throughout of what it all means. But sometimes it's just kind of refreshing to not have a movie that spells everything out for you. But you do need to make it shot well. You need to give people reasons to engage with it. And in Hold the Dark, it was the tone. It was so oppressively dark. Snow's beautiful, but snow can also be very depressing, and it kind of helped cage the characters into this world. And there's no light in this movie. It's like there's dark. It's just dark. You know, they're not thrown in jokes, is what I mean.
Right.
So much. There might be a few jokes here and there, maybe. I don't.
Cedric the Entertainer's not going to show up, but
yeah, they're not like, oh, we need to make this a little more uplifting and make it easier for people to digest. It's like, no, it's okay for movies to not do that and hold the dark. Just kept its tone. Part of the reason why some people won't like it, I'm sure, because a lot of people like some jokes scattered throughout, but sometimes I just want a movie that's really depressing, and this was.
This served the purpose. My number 28 best movie of 2018 is Jennifer Lawrence's Red Sparrow. And this is one of those movies where, like, the amount of naked Jennifer Lawrence that you see in this movie is what I would describe as more than you'd think, but less than you'd hope. It's about 500% more naked Jennifer Lawrence than I expected to see, but make no mistake about it, that's a feature, not a complaint. I think I underappreciate the spy thriller as a genre. I just don't think I give it quite as much credit for how much I actually enjoy those types of movies. I just never think of them when I think of, like, my favorite genres or subgenres or whatever. That doesn't immediately jump to mind, and yet every time I see a good one, I'm like, yeah, I'm down for this. So I think I undervalue it and underappreciate it as a genre. And Jennifer Lawrence gets these great badass moments in this movie, and they might not seem like badass moments, but there's the one in particular where basically she takes power from the other recruit that has, you know, they've had some issues that may or may not have included attempted rape, and spoilers, it did. And she has this scene where she takes power from that person, and it's like her ultimate badass moment in the movie, and she's really not doing very much, but what she does completely takes power away from that person. I was like, that's one of my favorite scenes, I think, of the entire year. So I think if you give me, like, a spy thriller with, obviously, performer or performers who I really like, give it a little charged eroticism in there, you very much have my attention. And Red Sparrow is my number 28.
I liked Red Sparrow. It was a good movie. Okay, my number 27 is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. The best movie of the year, according to everyone. Certainly the best animated one. Don't know if that's true or not. I'd have to see my list again to see if there's any animated movies I like more. I do really like this movie. I didn't really feel that the script was that strong. I felt like they could have done a little more, but aside from that, I don't really have any big complaints. Like, it's worth watching for the animation alone. And there's a lot of kinetic energy throughout the entire movie that kind of helps you forgive some of its shortcomings.
Right.
I'm not willing to jump on the bandwagon of this being the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Infinity War.
I can't think of anything clever.
Right.
I'm not willing to jump on that train, but I'm also not gonna sit there and hate on the movie because I did really enjoy it, and it's really awesome that Sony finally did something right that everyone can agree on.
It only took them how many years?
Yeah, so.
My number 27 best movie of 2018 is Alex Garland's Annihilation. I talked about it a little bit earlier during the Best Directors portion of the awards. And this is, every year I find I hit at least one movie that by the end of it, I'm like, okay, I have way more questions than I have answers about exactly what I just saw, because it's not, it's one of those movies that doesn't spoon feed you exactly what it is and exactly what happened and exactly what the result was and da-da-da-da. Like, you get some of that stuff, but I find it's, by the end of it, I was like, I have a lot of questions, and it offers up answers very slowly, and I actually appreciate that. It's one of those movies that I think will strongly reward watching it multiple times, but it doesn't exactly make that the easiest thing in the world to do. But it's one that I would at least recommend watching the first time. The first time you watch it, just watch it for pleasure. Just watch it for the beautiful visuals and watch it for Natalie Portman's performance and Oscar Isaac's performance. Like, just watch it for that. And then the second time you watch it, that's when you really watch it, right? You really watch it for exactly what's going on, exactly what led to this, exactly what this could be, exactly what this might mean, etc., etc. But so beautifully constructed and such an excellent story, that makes Annihilation my number 27.
You are completely right. It is a good movie. It's a very beautiful movie.
Mm-hmm.
My number 26, mine's similar territory to Annihilation. It's Paddington 2.
Ah, yes.
It's so similar it hurts.
Very nice.
Technically a cheater pick because it came out I think in the UK like late last year or something like that, but it counts. The Paddington movies have been shockingly good. I'm not even a Paddington fan,
Right.
but these movies have been so charming and funny and heartfelt and clever. There's certain scenes in this one especially that are actually really inspired. Yeah, these movies don't get as much love over here as they would over in the UK for obvious reasons, but they're very good animated movies that are fun for the kids, fun for the adults.
And I think that's what you need in a lot of kids' movies nowadays is like, or the ones that are really remarkable at least, is like they're really solid kids' movies, but adults can sit down and be like, that was a really enjoyable movie. Like, not just one that I sat through because I had to bring my kids to it.
Yeah.
Like, it was actually a really enjoyable movie.
You leave feeling good about yourself. It's a good time. Watch the Paddington movies.
There you go. My number 26, best movie of 2018, I believe is still in theaters now. It is Aquaman. And eventually, someday, Jason Momoa yucking it up is going to get old. But today ain't that day. Like, I went into that movie... all I wanted from that movie was to be entertained. That was where the expectations were. I was like, I already know I like Jason Momoa as this character. I just want this movie as a whole to be entertaining for me. And it was. It was very much entertaining. And then you couple that with the fact that, like, I thought the CGI was beautiful, which is really difficult to do with water a lot of the time. And I thought that every visual element in this movie looked really, really good. The narrative is not the greatest I've ever seen. The story is actually a little hackneyed in certain ways, but all I wanted from the movie was to be entertained, and I got way more than that. And again, Jason Momoa yucking it up looks great. And when I say yucking it up, I don't mean like, oh, this is disgusting. I mean literally just like, he's just got Jason Momoa face. Like, he makes that face where he's just like, he's taking the piss out of this, kind of. But, and that's not gotten old for me at all. He's clearly having so much fun with this kind of character, and that's just a guy that strikes me as, he's just having fun being alive. So, that Aquaman's my number 26. It was undeniable for me.
I didn't have any interest in it. Like, I liked Aquaman and, like, Justice League and whatever, but... I don't know, I saw the trailers and it just didn't do it for me. And I was trying to save money. So I was like, I'm not going to waste my money on that when I don't really want to see it. But I'm glad it's good. I mean, it's getting pretty good reception all around. Not amazing, but people think it's fun.
Right. I put it as like, as far as the individual, like the solo DC movies, it's not as good as Wonder Woman. And I don't think it is as good as Wonder Woman, but at least it still just gave me what I was looking for.
Yeah. My number 25 is Incredibles 2. I didn't technically wait for this movie for as long as fans did, because I wasn't waiting for it. Like, I didn't think about Incredibles like, man, I need an Incredibles 2.
Right.
But it was worth the wait anyway.
Right, yeah.
Like, it's a worthy sequel. It doesn't really bring anything new to the superhero genre. Not as important as, like, the first one in that regard. But it was funny, had heart.
And actually had a story.
And had a good story. It balanced its social commentary pretty well. I actually enjoyed Screenslaver as a villain. I know some people didn't, but I actually did. And yeah, so Incredibles 2 is another success for Pixar.
Yeah. Because then they really needed it, you know.
They were really slumping.
If this didn't get off the ground, that might have been it. My number 25 best movie of 2018 is the aforementioned 2017 cheater, The Post. And I think the best thing that I can say about that movie is like the social and political commentary that's within that movie, at the very least, makes me glad that it exists. Because we live in a time, obviously, we live in the fake news generation, quote unquote, and I think the overall message of like the sanctity of press freedom, I think is at least something that is relevant and is a message that's worth talking about and worth stating. I could have done without the multitude of scenes in this movie of self-important people, 99% of which being men, talking over each other. There were a lot of scenes of that in this movie that's literally just like 5 men in a circle, each thinking that they're the most important one in the circle, just trying to talk over each other. But I get that that's exactly what they were going for, because that only stands in more stark contrast to Meryl Streep's character. So I get that that's what they were going for. I just could have used with a couple fewer of those scenes. But it's obviously done incredibly well with Spielberg at the helm and Meryl Streep with a very steady hand. Acting wise, as well as Tom Hanks. So I mean, you got those. When you got that kind of talent in around the movie, it's obviously going to be to a certain floor level of quality, and that's what it was for me. And it's good enough to land number 25 on my list.
Well, there you go. I haven't seen it, so it's the worst movie ever.
Absolutely.
Okay, my number 24 is a cheater pick, but it's Mom and Dad, starring Nicolas Cage and Selma Blair. It's a movie about something triggering parents to want to kill their kids obsessively. Like, they won't stop until they kill their own children. I like that premise. I think it's set up well to be a nice black comedy, and I think it's successful. The director, can't remember his name. I think it's Brian Taylor. Is not a good director. He made like Jonah Hex, I think, and like one or two of the Ghost Riders. Like not.
So
great.
he loves Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, not like great movies by any means, but this is easily his best. This is a really good, like, underrated movie, but you got to approach it as a black comedy. It's classified as like a horror, I guess, but it's not really scary. It's just you got to watch Selma Blair and Nicolas Cage be crazy and try to kill their children, and I found it so much fun. It was the first big surprise of the year for me because I expected it to be shitty, but I decided to give it a chance. I really, really enjoyed it.
Very nice.
And I gave Nicolas Cage an actor nod in a previous video, partially because of this movie. So
where else are you going to see that?
Yeah, you can't trust me.
My number 24 best movie of 2018 is a movie I went into mostly blind, and I think that plays a large role into why I enjoyed it as much as I did. It's Game Night. And honestly, it was just, look, sometimes a good comedy just gets me. And this was this was one of the good ones in a genre that's full of a ton of schlock. That's almost unwatchable. This was one of the good ones. I thought it was funny throughout. I didn't think it lost any steam at all. It was an interesting premise, and like I say, I went into it mostly blind, not really knowing what to expect, and therefore I wound up getting a movie that I actually really enjoyed because I wasn't calling things to come, and sometimes that happens in comedy movies, and it really just completely kills any enjoyability. That didn't happen this time. Game Night is my number 24.
People really love this movie, and I wish I could have enjoyed it more than I did. I still liked it. There's some really funny parts, but I'm not on that same level as everyone else. I really wish I could be. So, but it's still good. It's still funny. I would recommend it to people, even if I don't necessarily love it. I'd still say it's probably one of the best. It's easily one of the best comedies, pure comedies of the year.
Right.
Okay, my number 23 is Annihilation. I can't really add much more to it than you already did. It was a great movie. I will say this. The bear scene is fantastic, and I'm glad you didn't mention it because I was kind of running out of things to say about Annihilation. We talked about the director, you talked more about it, but I can mention the bear scene. The bear scene is scary, and that bear is really cool.
Yeah.
So, like when it opens its mouth and the sounds that come out of it, that scene is fantastic, and that's really all I have to add. Just go watch Annihilation.
And again, watch it a couple of times. My number 23 best movie of 2018 is Halloween. And just because this was just entertaining to me. I thought the story kind of progressed along fairly well, although Laurie is a remarkably terrible decision maker for the fact that she's been planning this for 40 years.
Yeah.
It's like, why is every decision you make a stupid one if you've been planning this for 4 decades?
Yeah.
Like, it's unreal to me that the terrible logic and terrible decision making that character goes through. I feel like it's been pointed out in multiple places, and you may even have pointed it out. So maybe I won't even say this because I might not want to steal this comment from you. I really enjoy the Michael Myers character. I didn't call the heel turn that happens late in the movie. Like it happens, and it was impactful for me. I didn't project that it was going to happen, and the way that it was done, I thought was fairly well done as well. I was just entertained by it. I had a lot of fun with this movie, and that's why Halloween's my number 23.
The heel turn scared me because I thought, if this is where they're going, this may tank the movie, but luckily it didn't go the way I feared. I like this. I thought the beginning was really good, and then I felt that the movie basically was like, woo, and then it went woo, and then like it went woo.
Right.
I gave it a 7 out of 10. I enjoyed it. It was good. I'm glad that it wasn't crappy. You know, it's nice to see Halloween come back and be pretty well received.
Right.
It was hard not to go in with expectations really high because word out of festivals and stuff is that this movie's fantastic. And I'm like, oh, cool. We're going to get an awesome Halloween movie. But it was good. It was good. Certainly not the first Halloween.
Right. But, it didn't set the atmosphere.
Well, because Carpenter's much better at that.
Yes.
And he didn't direct this.
No.
So like that hurts. That hurts it because Carpenter was a master at this kind of thing. All right, my number 22 is The Night Comes for Us. This has comparisons to The Raid, although I can't actually remember why. I think it has like the same actor.
Okay.
They're both from Indonesia. Although The Raid also has like some US part, to it. But basically you compare it to The Raid, which is one of the best just pure action movies really of all time, but certainly of the last like 15 years. The Night Comes for Us, very violent, not quite as good as The Raid, but the fight choreography is mostly stellar, except like there's a few parts where people kind of stand around waiting a little too much.
Okay.
But they kind of trade in the better choreography for like more bloodshed. People die in really violent ways in this movie, and it's such a thrill ride when the fighting is happening. It is so exciting. The pacing's a little off when the fighting isn't happening, but you watch these movies for the fights, and they deliver. Indonesia's bringing some really interesting stuff out lately, I've noticed, certainly in like the action genre, and I love action movies, so The Night Comes for Us is an amazing movie that's on Netflix.
Oh, cool.
For you to watch.
Right now. My number 22 best movie of 2018, with apologies to our friend Nick Stevenson, is Ready Player One. He really loves the book and really did not enjoy the movie. This, to me, was just movie fun, the movie. Like, this might be the most shut up and enjoy movie fun movie that I think, certainly that I saw this year, but one of the most that I've seen in quite some time. I can totally understand if people are left a little cold by the storyline or detached from the characters a little bit, or, if you're not up on pop culture references, this is probably not going to be the movie for you, especially video game ones. And I realize that they modernized a lot of those for the movie version versus the version in the book. But again, I just had so much fun with this. I couldn't really deny. At the end of that movie, I just had this big, goofy, stupid smile on my face. I was like, I just really, really, really had fun. And sometimes you go to the movies just to really, really, really have fun. So that was absolutely fulfilled from that movie, Ready Player One, my number 22.
Every time you bring up our friend Nick, I always offer a counterpoint, because he really liked the book and didn't like the movie. I also enjoyed the book, and I enjoyed the movie.
There you go.
So it lacks the character depth and heart of the book, but it's still ultimately a fun flick. So, I obviously lots of references, because in the book there's lots of references, although they're more retro in the book.
Yeah, but they definitely modernized them for the movie.
And this had a narrative that was satisfying enough to be entertaining that the references just couldn't smother it. So it was fine. It was a fine little fun flick. So Nick, my number 21 is Blind Spotting. I will say that this movie hits social commentary that you might expect if you pay attention to the news at all. It does it well, but it's not exactly saying anything that, new.
Right.
But maybe, it doesn't have to. I mentioned the actors, the two main actors in my Best Actor awards. Their chemistry is just fantastic, and the script is also really entertaining. So I did really enjoy this movie. There is one criticism I have of it. The end, I've seen near the end. I won't spoil it, I guess, but it was a little too much. A little too much. But aside from that, a really good movie that's built largely on the chemistry of the two people. That I was never bored during it. It had something to say. You know, performances were good. It was funny when it had to be, serious when it had to be. It hit all those notes well. So yeah, number 21 is Blind Spotting.
Oh, cool. My number 21 best movie of 2018 is a movie that we talked about in a previous video. It is Blockers, and ultimately, when your comedy, at the end of the day, make me laugh. And Blockers made me laugh quite a bit. Tyler's taking his coat off. He's getting so heated about this. I thought it was very heartfelt. There were characters that you could get behind. Again, gender bending the American Pie trope. I'm all for that. I thought that was an excellent concept. I thought it was executed really well. Representative outside of the heteronormative is the way that I kind of described it in my review that I did, because again, not only was it gender bending the American Pie trope, but then it was further subverting it by making one of the characters gay. Spoilers. And she's just kind of in the process of coming out of the closet. And in 2018, that was that kind of representative. It was a great example of like a representative comedy. A lot of comedy can be maybe described as exclusionary, whether that's accurate or not, but I've seen a lot of comedy described in that way. So it was kind of interesting in 2018 to show a great example of a comedy that was representative and done in a pretty good way. Shout out to the adult performances, shout out to the kids' performances. Blockers, my number 21.
It was really funny. And I think I said in a previous video, it could possibly be the best pure comedy of the year. Just pure comedy. Like, there's movies that I laughed more at, that weren't necessarily just pure comedies. My number 20 is Bodied, which I think was produced by Eminem.
Yeah, I believe it was.
So at the very beginning of the movie, it's basically this like white boy watching like rap battles, and he's explaining like rap to I think his girlfriend. Or were they together? I think they were together. And ultimately, this is a movie that's a satire of like PC culture, which I love, because I'm on the side of, I think we're a little too sensitive these days. But even if you're on the other side that you think that we're just right, I think that Body does a good job of like deriving its humor from stuff that people will find really offensive, but also giving a fairly level-headed dissection of PC like culture.
Okay.
Like, it didn't really, like, obviously the jokes leaned a little more towards being offensive, but at the same time, it's just kind of like, well, it does have things to say about the language that we use to talk to each other and the stuff we say. So it was actually a fairly smart movie, but then it also has rap battles and stuff. Yeah. And it was shot interestingly, and yeah, I actually really enjoyed Bodied. It overcame that beginning that made me feel like, oh no, maybe this isn't going to live up to what I want. Nice. But like Eminem's earlier stuff, it was really good.
There you go. Yeah, that was one that I had loaded up to watch and just wound up running out of real estate. Like I had it and I was like, this seems really interesting. I think I would enjoy this, and just ran out of time. Tyler's calmed down, so he put his coat back on, and here we go with my number 20 best movie of 2018. It's First Man, with our boy Ryan Gosling.
Our boy Ryan Gosling.
And what I loved about this so much, I mean, obviously Gosling's performance is so incredible. I was so deeply invested in especially the second half of the movie. Like, once it becomes very obvious, like, yo, that we're going to the moon. Once that's really set in stone and it's going to be him that's doing it, it's the second half of the movie is the half that really, really compelled me. And Damien Chazelle, who directed this, had such a steady hand in not just obviously the creation of the movie and how it looked and everything like that, but the fact that Chazelle, I feel like with a lot of his shots, took the moon, and not only was the moon like the goal, obviously the moon is the goal, but the moon was like its own kind of antagonist to Ryan Gosling. Because you would have these shots of like Gosling just so defeated and fed up, and then he'd just look up and the moon would just be there almost like taunting him
Screw
that it was
man.
there. Exactly.
What have you done for us?
So it's like the way that you frame that and set that shot up, and Gosling obviously gets that over too with his own acting and expressions and stuff. But the way that they just made the moon basically the antagonist while still being the goal, I thought it was masterfully well done. And First Man is my number 20. One of the most intense theater experiences I think I've ever had.
Another pick of yours I didn't love, but I liked. Gosling's performance, though, I considered that my best actor thing. He was in it. It was fun. It was like a really good movie. It kind of felt to me like a bit of a play for an Oscar, and sometimes you know that,
Yeah.
and you can kind of go along with it. Sometimes you're like, well, it kind of feels like Oscar bait. And if this one felt a little Oscar baitish to me, in a bad way.
Going in, that was my impression of going into the movie. I was like, okay, cool. This is Damien Chazelle's Oscar bait, Ryan Gosling's Oscar bait. Cool. Let's do this and see if it's decent.
But it was good. It was a good movie. I enjoyed it. I just didn't love it. My number 19 is Searching. Have you seen Searching?
It's another one that I had it geared up and I just ran out of time.
All right, so I mean you probably know this, but like for those who may not know, the gimmick of it is that it basically happens on it's one of those movies that basically happens on a screen, right?
Yeah.
Like Unfriended before it. Within the first 10 minutes of Searching, I was emotionally invested in this family because what the writer or director, I don't know, it might be the same person, I don't know off the top of my head. What they understand is like the psychology of interaction in a digital age, and why, and like how people react to things on a digital in the digital age. What I mean by that is, I guess this is a minor spoiler. There's a part where the main character like basically deletes saved files about I don't know if it was his family or something to do with his family, and like that is such a big deal to anyone who understands like what it's like you have a falling out with someone,
Yes.
and you had a video of you two together and you delete that. It doesn't sound like a big deal unless you understand that is a big friggin' deal.
Yeah.
But, you just deleted part of your life was what?
It's the digital equivalent of taking printed pictures and ripping them up.
Yeah, and you delete a conversation with someone, delete them from your contacts, anything like that. That's a big deal because you have essentially cut them out of your life. And this movie understood that, and that's part of the reason why it was so emotionally effective. It went on a little bit at the end, but I didn't hate it too much, but it probably could have ended a little sooner than it did. But it was another example of this gimmick of everything happened on a computer screen. I'm not sick of that gimmick yet. I mean, there's not a lot of movies doing it. It's not exactly found footage yet, where every movie's doing it. But I mean, we're getting more movies doing it, so it might eventually saturate the market.
Yeah, I really wanted to see it. It was one that I was actually one of the ones that I was anticipating more towards the end of the year, and like I say, I got it and just flat ran out of time, and that was one of the ones that I was like, oh god, that's my white whale for the year, right? I so wanted to see that and just couldn't. My number 19 best movie of 2018, it's Mary Poppins. Mary Poppins Returns, officially probably the most Disney movie I've ever seen. There's Disney, and then there's really Disney. This thing is up to its nostrils in Disney dust, and I couldn't care less. I just had so much bloody fun with this. Emily Blunt is the perfect actress to take on the Mary Poppins character today. She was fantastic in it. Lin-Manuel Miranda, who stars opposite her, he delivers, but there was one musical number that just very clearly just drone on way too long. You could have cut the segment. I'm talking about the one for Triple Little Light Fantastic. You could have trimmed that segment literally by 5 minutes, and it would have improved. It would have improved that song. But for the most part, he was really good, and obviously Emily Blunt was really good. And the kids were quite good as well. Pretty well everybody in that movie is good. And even though it is drowning in Disney dust, it was still really enjoyable. So, Mary Poppins Returns is my number... What was it?
19.
19.
My favorite movie of the year, the one I didn't see.
Mary Poppins.
That was good enough that you had to say it again?
I did.
Right on. My number 18 is Beautiful Boy. To be honest, I didn't really expect to like this one as much as I did. I expected it to be drier, and I thought it was a lot more not exciting. Because drug addiction isn't exciting.
Right. I can't wait to get excited by this drug addict.
Like, not that it was like oozing in style, but it was a little more stylish, a little more almost kinetic, I suppose.
Yes.
Because I can't think of a better word than I thought, and I appreciated that because I expected just like a ho hum like drama full of good performances, which it certainly did have that. But no, it was a little more thrilling, I suppose, than I expected. Again, wrong word. I'm using wrong words. I need a thesaurus. I love, though, that it didn't cop out on its message of drug addiction and getting help. It wasn't like one of these movies where it's just like, go to rehab, everything's going to be okay.
Right.
It's like, no, it's more complicated than that. And I'm not going to spoil the ending, but I actually adore the ending of this because I thought it was perfect. I saw a lot of people being like, what a crappy ending. And it's like, no, that ending is basically perfect.
Right.
For what the message of the movie was. It's not an easy message, but it's an effective one, and it's an honest one, and it's a genuine message. So, Beautiful Boy is my number 18.
Timothée Chalamet, who I gave praise to in my Best Actor, and then Steve Carell, and the way those two, I mean, the movie's built on their relationship and their interactions with each other and the way they get to play off of each other. And sometimes Timothée Chalamet might go a little extra, but he always pulls it back. So, and Steve Carell is just like a master as far as I'm concerned, and especially this type of character. My number 18, best movie of 2018, so I guess this would be the champagne pick, if you want to call it that.
I don't.
18 for 18, he doesn't want to, I do. It's Mission Impossible Fallout, and I think you go into almost every Mission Impossible movie knowing more or less what you're going to get. Not that, like, there's predictable plot points or anything like that, but you just kind of know certain elements that you're going to get. You know Tom Cruise is going to carry the film, the stunts are going to be really good, and that's the case. You know there's going to be more swerves than a Vince Russo script for Monday Night Nitro in the year 2000.
Let's say, very confusing plot.
Right?
May or may not make sense. Who cares?
And they really don't.
Who cares?
I think at the end, we're just like, I don't care. I'm just having so much fun with this character that Tom Cruise has obviously mastered and is. Like, so I just wanted to be entertained. I just wanted to, like, the very definition of popcorn flick entertainment. And every time we get one of these, that's pretty much what you're getting, especially with the most recent ones. Have been like, these movies have only been getting better after, like, Mission Impossible kind of cratered out a little bit with MI3, and that's exactly what Fallout was for me, and that is good enough to make Fallout, I'm having a hard time with numbers, my number 18.
It's one of the best action franchises going.
There you go.
Funny, because, like, the first Mission Impossible is the best Mission Impossible, come at me, but it was just, like, a low-key spy thriller.
Yeah.
And I love that movie to death. And then the second one was like, oh, action movie, and it was okay, and then the third one sucked. But yeah, you're right, it's like, it's just been like, they've been awesome. I apologize if I don't pronounce the name right for my number 17. It's Makia, When the Promised Flower Blooms. It's an animated movie. So Into the Spider-Verse is not the best animated movie of the year.
There you go.
I was wondering that earlier in case you just tuned in. And no, it is not, even though nobody would agree with me. But this is like a Japanese animated movie about motherhood. There's a war going on too, but really this movie's about motherhood. What I love about this is there's a gazillion movies about family. Like, you could argue that most movies are about family, but this one is especially potent. Very sad. The interactions are between Ariel, who's the kid that Makia, or however you pronounce it, basically adopts.
Okay.
Because his mother dies, and it's just like, and you kind of see Ariel grow up. But it's very powerful. It's a fantasy movie technically, but it doesn't lean so heavy on fantastical elements. Like, Makia herself is like basically a mythical being, I suppose you could call them. Like, she like, as Ariel grows up, like, she looks exactly the same, even though they're technically both aging. But she's like, she'll live like hundreds of years, I think.
Okay.
But he won't. It's such a powerful movie. I really strongly recommend it because, like, every year there's like a Japanese animated movie or two that are really good. Like, last year was Your Name, and I think it was a Silent Voice. I think that was the name. I could be wrong there. Both really good movies. This wasn't quite your name for me, but it was so close. I love this movie. Like, I don't know if I said it, but the animation is stunning, and the themes are potent, and it's beautiful. It's very sad. It's very cry-y.
Right.
A lot of blubbering going on is what I'm saying.
Fair enough. Speaking of animated movies about Japanese parenthood, my number 17 is Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Oh shit! Yeah, I can see. I see how.
I see it's in there, right? In most ways, here comes the code again.
I'm just getting cold
and then
warm. So you're probably gonna have it a bunch more.
It's probably fair enough. I think in most ways we can consider this an upgrade from the first one. Maybe not a massive upgrade, but an upgrade. Like if you can find it in yourself to not get bogged down by the science, like I didn't, but by reading other reviews and reading comments about the movie, that's not the case for everybody. I really preferred the way they portrayed Ghost versus the way they portrayed Yellow Jacket in the first one. Like, it's got a better quote-unquote villain, even though Ghost isn't really a villain. But that's still preferable to the way that they did Yellow Jacket. In the first one, I think Yellow Jacket is arguably the weakest villain in the entire MCU to this point.
One of,
certainly in that conversation. And just in most ways, I thought it was a bit of an uptick, and I'm still enjoying Paul Rudd as Ant-Man, and I think the insulatory cast, like especially Michael Pena. I'm finding I really like Michael Pena in almost everything I see him in.
Yeah, he's always good.
Anytime I see Michael Pena, I'm like, yes, this character is going to be great because it's Michael Pena. Yeah. Like, even in a movie like that's in the one that's in theaters right now, The Mule. He's in The Mule. And I'm like, I see him, and I'm like, yes, Michael Pena's in this movie. That character's going to be good. And who wouldn't you know who won the pony, right? He was really good in that movie. So, Ant-Man and the Wasp is my number 17.
I definitely agree that the second one's better than the first. The first was quite good.
Right.
Like, really good. Except I felt that it took a little while to get going. So the beginning was kind of like typical origin story stuff, where it's just kind of like, whatever. But then once it got going, it got going. But this was just going from the beginning. Like, it was so good, especially when you consider that nobody really wanted it after Infinity War, because we're all just kind of like, we want Infinity War 2.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, Infinity War's done.
Can
we get the next one, please? And they're like, nah, here's Ant-Man. We're like, oh, God. And look, this movie, ultimately, it was Ant-Man just kind of killing time. And it's just, it's the explanation of where he is during this. And it's like, okay, cool, but I was still entertained by this, so I was still happy with it. So that's why it's on the listicle.
So my number 16 is a banger. You know what it is? It's Peter Rabbit! Yeah, and all I have written in my little note for it is, I just wrote, in parentheses, yeah! It is Peter Rabbit, yeah! He doesn't really like this movie that much. Yeah, I think he thought it was okay, though.
It was
fine. He didn't hate it.
The thing that I said about this movie was, even for whatever I think about it, which is not great, but for what I think about it, it very clearly worked for its core audience. Because when I went and saw when I went and saw this movie, every kid that was in the theater was laughing and was in with it, and I was like, you know what? Mission accomplished. Because this is not a movie that has to be for me. I'm just here watching. It's not a movie that has to be for me. Every kid in the audience is enjoying this movie. I can't ask, like, sure, fine, cool, mission accomplished. Just not really for me. But what does this guy think of it?
Well, here's the thing, right? I remember seeing a trailer for this, and you said, am I going to have to go see that with you? And the thing is, I didn't even think that it looked especially good. Obviously, I've got the bunny bias, so people might not necessarily believe that I wasn't actually that excited for this movie, but I just didn't think it looked great. But I was like, I'm going to watch it because I want to see a movie with a bunny as the main character. And I turned it on, and from the opening shot, it would have had to work really hard for me to not enjoy it, because the opening shot is literally just a bunch of bunnies running through a field.
Yeah.
I mean, even though they're animated, I'm just like, look at them go. But there's like legitimate jokes in this movie, especially for those who understand, like, actually know something about rabbits. But even if you don't, like, it's still funny. But like, I was enjoying it, but then I realized by the end of it, like that, like hour and a half or whatever, just breezed by. I was so into it that like I expected maybe I don't know, a 6.5 or a 7 at best. That's what I expected from my rating, but I got much more than that. And for some reason, I just love this movie because I actually did think it was funny and had heart and was exciting, and it had bunnies.
There you go. And we'll close the video, ladies and gentlemen, with my number 16 best movie of 2018. And it's a movie he already mentioned. It's Beautiful Boy. Virtually everything that he said about it, I certainly agree with. It's told in a kind of a little bit of a time-hopping narrative style, which, again, that can work very well sometimes, or sometimes it can be, like, detrimentally noticeable. Yeah. You notice it here, and if you can stick along with it, which is certainly not as trying as some other examples of that style, but if you can stick along with it, I don't think it should bother you all that much. And you can be a little forgiven too if the ultimate message of the movie is a little bit lost on you, because I think it can go a few different directions with that, both positive directions and negative directions. But again, it's everything you can say about Timothée Chalamet and about Steve Carell and the way they interplay off of each other. As Tyler mentioned, the ending of that movie is so investable. And just a final note to kind of cap off talking about the bouncing narrative style. I think it was very much done intentionally because this movie operates very much like The Mind does, and I think that's intentional. Like, they're trying to say, like, the mind, you hop around from thought to thought to thought to thought to thought, feels like a million times a minute, and I think the movie, in a very subtle way, is trying to mimic that, because you can only imagine how the mind of an addict would work, and how that would only be with the brain so stimulated by whatever it is that you happen to be taking, that is only going to be intensified, and you're all over the place with your thoughts. And I think that was an intentional choice here, and that's, I kind of think, kind of why they did it in that way. They were trying to mimic the mind a little bit. At least that's the lens that I'm placing over top of the movie, and it gives me an added level of appreciation for it. So Beautiful Boy closes off the list at my number 16.
That's a clever lens to look at it through.
I kind of thought so.
I obviously really enjoyed that movie.
Halfway home, ladies and gentlemen, there are the top 30 best movies of 2018, number 30 to number 16. Tune in to the next video where we're going to go through number 15 all the way up to number 1. See you there.